Hi there, and welcome to another set review. I think this is our fourth in a row now. We're doing quite well with Matteo and Neil.
Keeping it up.
Keeping it up. But very impressive at your age, especially. And
it's
So we normally, for the last year, we've done every single card in the set, but we thought we don't want it. Basically, it's like 3-4 hour videos, 3-4 hour long videos. It lasts forever. People probably don't watch to the end anyway. So we're going to try and do a more snappy one this time. We've actually had the benefit. Normally, we also do them the first week they're out, but we have the benefit this week of having done a lot of drafts already. So it's been out for a couple of weeks by the time we do this. So hopefully we kind of know what we're talking about this time. I didn't actually revisit the last one. I think I said I would and go back and see how our ratings eventually matched up against how the sets turned out. But yeah, we actually have a number of drafts on dropouts. I hit Mythic yesterday from Gold because I didn't play much last month, so I had to sort of climb the tiers. So I've made it to the top finally. So I've done enough drafts to do that. You're remaining awkwardly silent on the issue.
I am not doing well yet. I'm doing better now that I have less cards in my sideboard.
Oh, okay. Does that mean more? I guess we'll get onto that, but it sounds like you're drafting more lands that way. So what we're going to do, like I said, we're not going to go through every single... Oh, you've got a surprise visitor in the background. We're not going to go through every single card this week, or this set, I guess.
Yeah.
Don't worry, take your time.
She was like, "Oh, you on camera? Didn't we on camera?" And then runs off.
We're not going to go through every single card in the set. We're instead going to go through each colour. We're going to list our top 5 commons and uncommons. We're not going to focus too much on rares. I guess we'll mention them in the natural discussion. But we're going to go through the top 5 commons and uncommons, and then we're going to list sort of the 6.
You said 3.
Did I? Oh,
yeah.
I've done 5. No, sorry, yeah, no, that 3. Is right. No, that is right. Yeah, it's 3. I'm getting myself confused. 3 for each colour, and then we're going to do the top 5 cards for each archetype of the 6. What we reckon are the most common archetypes. Obviously, there are other things you can draft, but what we've seen as being the 6 sort of most easily drafted decks, and that's basically it. I'm going to accompany this with an article on our website. I don't know where you're watching this from, probably YouTube, but if you head to tvpodcast.com, I'll write this all down if you just want to skip through to our ratings, basically. You can probably... I'll try and do it with timestamps in the YouTube video, but also just head to our website and you can see all the pretty pictures of the cards, what we think are the best. Should we dive straight in then?
Might as well.
So, starting with white. So what we're going to do is I'll give my number 1 and you give your number 1, and then through the power of editing, they will appear on the screen for the lovely viewer. My number 1 is actually, I think, possibly the best uncommon in the set, better than a lot of the rares, Clarion Spirit. This card's just gone up and up in my estimations.
Unsurprisingly, that is my top uncommon as well. It's just so good.
I keep getting past this like 4th, 5th pick in the first pack, and that should not be happening. People need to understand how good this card is. It's like...
Perhaps this is why you're Mythic and I'm not. I'm not getting past Clarion Spirit's 4th pick.
Yeah, I posted a photo in our Discord the other day of a deck I had with 3 Clarion Spirits, and safe to say that was a fun draft to play. Like, it just runs away with the game fairly quickly. Obviously, the black-white deck, the double spells deck, which we'll talk about later, wants this kind of card anyway, so you're not really sacrificing anything by picking it. Like, it's good in any deck. So the floor is pretty high, and then the ceiling is just huge. Like, the card just gets better and better the more you draft around it, and it's just so hard to... Like, it always feels awkward playing your removal on a 2-drop, but like you just have to kill this as soon as it hits the board, otherwise your opponent's going to run away with the game.
Very much so. Very, very much so.
All right, no debates there. Number 2 in white, I've got Shepherd of the Cosmos.
Interesting. I've gone for Usher of the Fallen.
Okay.
As my number 2.
Because I often see this one quite late as well in drafts, and I pick it highly. In fact, no, you explain why you think it's a number 2, and then I'll do Shepherd. Let's do it in reverse order.
It's another card like obviously it's nowhere near as good as Clarion Spirit, but it's just one that if you get it down early and they're faffing about for telling, you just get like so much of a little advantage to start with that you can just like... You just get to like block really handily with all these like random tokens that you've generated that could give you an advantage.
Yeah, I think I think possibly this card is better against worse opponents. Like, it's very dependent on how your opponent plays around it. Because it makes combat awkward for them, doesn't it? But what
Yeah.
I found the 1/1 to be like, whilst it feels really powerful, like a 1-mana 2/1 is obviously just great anyway with an ability, even better. But I found the 1/1s in this format like a little inconsequential. Obviously, Clarion Spirit gives them flying, which is like a huge boost because there aren't that many flyers in the set. But
No, there are not.
yeah, I've not been that impressed by Usher. But anyway, so I've chosen Shepherd. It doesn't really need explaining. It's just like a solid card, 4-mana 3/3 flyer that brings something back. Brings your Clarion Spirit back if you're lucky. Once they've killed it, get it back. But it's also, you get like nice little synergies with like the runes. Obviously, cantrip when they enter play. So if you've already had a creature die with a rune on it, you just bring it back with a Shepherd. Now you've got a 3/3 flying lifelink that draws a card. Like it doesn't need much work to make it good. Sneaker's trying to join in on the chat. I guess he disagrees with my pick. Sounds like he prefers Usher of the Fallen.
It was nice and silent during my chat.
Testing.
Oh my god! Shut up.
Right, number 3 in white. I have gone for Valkyrie's Sword, but I'm not sure on this. So I want to hear what you've said before I discuss that.
I have gone for Valkyrie's Sword.
Okay. So Shepherd not even in your top 3 and Usher not in my
I'll
top
be honest,
3.
I forgot about Shepherd of the Cosmos. I think I thought it was rare.
Yeah, it does feel rare, doesn't it? Okay.
Yeah.
But for me,
as soon as you said Shepherd of the Cosmos, I was like, oh yeah. Yeah.
Of course.
All right then.
All right, fair enough. But so Valkyrie Sword, I think, has been worse than I thought it would be. When I read it, I was like, this seems like a really cool card, but it hasn't played up to its expectations.
It turns out 7's a lot.
Yeah.
It turns out 7 really is a lot.
The +2/+1 isn't that big a benefit either. Like some of the equipments, I think the black one, the Draugr's Helm, and the green one, the Elven Bow, have a much better sort of post-equip effect. Like having +1/+2 and reach, or +2/+1 menace is much better than just +2/+1. So,
like the red one's obviously much better, the Dwarven Hammer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sorry, I forgot. Yeah, to mention that. But some of them, like with this one, so basically with some equipments, it's fine to just play them. Whereas with Valkyrie's Sword, you basically only ever want to cast it for 7, and 7's just like not that great. So I think it was basically between this and Usher for me, and I haven't played Usher enough to make me want to put that. You've got a visitor again. Yeah. So yeah, I want to put Valkyrie's Sword for now, but I think in a few weeks that would have gone down. So I'm not sold on
like I
that one.
said, I put it because like it feels like it should be powerful.
Yeah.
And then it turns out the more you play it, like you said, it just sort of like you just realise that you're not getting to 7 that often, or when you are, like it is like it's obviously not bad when you go, oh, here's my 7-mana 6/5 flyer. Like that is going to win some games and what have you, but yeah, it's just not as powerful as you sort of think it should be.
Yeah. All right, on to blue then. Unless you have anything else to say about white.
No.
Cool. So in blue, I have I found the blue uncommons aren't that many actually really good ones. There's no equivalent of Clarion Spirit in blue.
I think there is.
Oh, is there? Okay, I'll be interested what you say. So I've actually gone. I don't think we'll match very closely on this, but for my number 1, I've actually, in the opposite sense of Valkyrie's Sword being worse than I thought, Giant's Amulet I've put being just better and better than I thought it was every time I play it. So I'm interested to hear what you put for number 1.
Avalanche Caller.
Yeah, so
that card's so good.
Yeah, so spoiler alert, Avalanche Caller I didn't put in my top 3 much to like with a lot of struggle because I think it's kind of a trap. Like when you've got a bunch of Snowlands, it's obviously amazing, but then that's true of a lot of snow cards in the set.
No, this one like it's such a beating.
Yeah.
Like where you just go, oh, here we go. It turns out I've now got 3 4/4s.
Yeah.
Coming at you.
Yeah,
because
I lost a game yesterday where I was like, "There's no way I can possibly lose this game." And then my opponent draws Avalanche Caller, smacks me for 12. I'm like, "Okay, well I've got removal for the Avalanche Caller. I'll take the 12 for now, and that's fine." And then next turn, draws Avalanche Caller, smacks me for 12. It's like, "Yep, that'll do it. Double Avalanche Caller in a row." But I had this on my honourable mentions. I feel like in the Snow deck, if you're drafting Snow, Avalanche Caller is like easily the number 1. But I didn't put it in my top 3 because I feel
The thing
like
is, you don't need that many Snowlands for it, because it's not like it's snow to activate. Like,
yeah, I suppose it like at worst it's a 2-mana 1/3, which is actually quite bad in this format, like worse in this format than a lot of other formats. But
yeah, Maritime Guard's not great in this format.
yeah, but yeah, no, I did think about this. This is probably the one that I thought about the most out of all these about not including. So I can't really fault you for it. But like I said, I kind of didn't want to include it because I wanted to have the sort of the 3 best blue cards, not considering archetypes, and that's why I just haven't included it in my list. But I do agree, like Avalanche Caller is very, very powerful, and I may change my mind on that in terms of it just being good in a non-snow deck anyway. But anyway,
see, that's interesting, because my number 2 is also a bit snow related. It's Icebound Pillar.
Yeah, so I've actually there's the Frost Augur and there's the Avalanche Caller, none of which I've included in my top 3, and all for the same reason. So I had like a special mention if I should say these would be the top 3 otherwise. So it sounds like your top 3 might be basically my alternative top 3. But for number 2, my number 2, I've gone for Glimpse of Cosmos. Just because this again, it's like gone up and up in my estimation every time I see it. And
see, Glimpse of Cosmos is my number 3.
Okay, so
because like I said, it just gets better and better. It's the fact that like you'll play it and sort of like, because you've got a couple of giants in your deck, and then you'll be like, play my Mistwalker, and they're like, oh, that's a giant as well. Oh, mint, yeah, I get to that now.
And we joked on the podcast as well that this is a lot better on Arena than it would be in real life, because in real life you'd forget that your Mistwalker triggers it, but on Arena, like, it just jumps up onto the screen as soon as you play Changeling. So, oh yeah, I get a free Glimpse of Cosmos. Yeah, for 1 blue mana.
Yeah.
And then it just has like incidental other synergies, like it's like randomly works on, like it triggers Vega the Watcher, like, oh cool, I get an extra card off this, I didn't realise I would. But yeah, Glimpse of Cosmos is just nice, cheap card advantage that, at worst it's strategic planning.
Yeah.
And my number 3, Inga Rune Eyes, I've put. I don't know how good this is. I think this will get worse. as the set goes on. But I mentioned this in a few podcasts ago as well. Like, I think
this is one that's good against worse players.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's really good at the moment because people seem to just keep like attacking into it with a bunch of creatures. Like, do you not understand how this card works? Like,
well, no, they don't. They think it's when 3 of your creatures die,
yeah. And so what?
Or something like that.
Because what also happens is, so if they double block with like this and something else. So say you attack with a big creature and they double block it with like, say you attack with a 5/5 and they block it with Inga Rune Eyes and a generic 2/2. What you can do is just kill the Inga, and then they don't draw the card. And like, I've done that a few times, and they'll like spam me with Nice. It's like it's all on board. Like, there's nothing clever about this. Like, you just need to learn how to play the cards better. And like similarly, if they attack and I double block, they'll never do the trick of only killing one of them. So I'm always going to draw 3 cards here. So yeah, I think this card will get worse as people learn how to play it. It's kind of a weird effect. I think, like you say, people think it's only going to trigger if 3 of your creatures have died, but it's just like 3 creatures in general. So even if you just like, if they attack with 1 creature and then you block and trade and kill another creature with removal before damage happens, like, you still draw 3 cards. It's a weird card.
Yeah.
But it catches people out a lot. I found I've won a lot of games off it, both mine and my opponents, because it didn't work how they thought it would.
Yeah.
All right then, moving on to black. Number 1.
Oh, we're not doing blue. All right, we're doing uncommons and then doing commons afterwards. Yes, we are.
That's what we've done so far.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know if we discussed we were going to do that, but that is what we've done so far. Moving on to black. Top 3 uncommons are I've
number 1's obvious.
Is it? Okay, this is interesting because I don't know if I'll put the same, but I've put Bloodsky Berserker.
I put Bloodsky Berserker as well.
Fair enough. We agree on that then.
Yeah.
The poor man's Clarion Spirit. It's like, when you can't get Clarion Spirit,
but it is just a beating.
Yeah, it will just.
It really is a beating.
It will always win the race. I get a lot of opponents where they're like, oh, I can race this, it's fine, I don't need to leave back blockers, but sometimes you just have to like accept that you're going to have to just double block it and hope they don't have removal, because it will just. It's
about that more often than not, it just comes down as a 3/3. Like, you just play it as a 3/3. You're like, oh, I'll play that and something else. It's a 3/3.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, untap, I'm going to attack, make it a 5/5 menace, and then you're just like, away.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. This is I think it's the best. Yeah, one of the best cards in the set, but definitely the best black uncommon. I wasn't so sure on the next few, but number 2 I've got Poison the Cup, just because I can't really turn down like cheap solid removal.
Yeah, and when you foretell it and you get to scry as well, feels
Yeah.
really powerful. It's like if you can afford to wait to foretell it and then just kill the thing straight away on their turn, it just feels really good.
Yeah. Is that your number 2 as well then?
Yeah, that's my number 2. I think number 3 might be where we differ.
Okay.
Because like I ummed and ahed a bit about
same.
what was number 3.
I've got a few honourable mentions written down. So I put Draugr's Helm as my number 3.
See, I nearly went for Draugr's Helm. I went for Vengeful Reaper.
That was my first honourable mention. Yeah, I think it's pretty close. I could go either way.
Yeah.
They're both just very solid cards, basically. I think it depends a lot on the deck you're playing. Like Draugr's Helm, obviously better in the sort of black-red or black-white like equipment-y decks with runes. Like if you stick the white lifelink rune on Draugr's Helm, it's suddenly like just a ridiculous card.
Yeah.
But I also had Tergrid's Shadow on my honorable mentions because this card I wanted to be good, but I found it to not be actually that great. Have you found it to be good or bad?
I've not managed to make it work.
Yeah.
And like when people have cast it against me, it's not felt like it's done what it feels like it should be able to do, if that makes sense.
Because you go into it thinking, oh, it's fine, I just won't play creatures the first few turns, I can get into this really great position. Like that happens maybe 1 in 5 games, but the rest of the time it's like you draw it when you've got better creatures than them, you don't really have a favourable position to be in. So I think, it's not
the other thing is like
the
times I've seen it is like it turns out their first 2 creatures are just a bit naff anyway.
Yeah.
They'll just play some like largely insignificant thing. It's not like they're going. It's like obviously it's great if they go Clarion Spirit, untap, Ice Hide Troll, and you're just like, lol, get them. But that just never happens.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Cool, so moving on to red. I struggled with red as well, actually. I did a lot of umming and ahhing on this, and I think we'll probably differ, but I also don't know if I agree with my own rankings. But number 1,
number 1...
Okay, you go first, because I've gone first so far.
I was going to say, my number 1 felt like it was clearly number 1, and that's Dwarven Hammer.
Yeah, so I had this at number 2, but I think that's the wrong way around. I wrote this down, and I was like, I don't think that's going to...
It turns out +3/+1 trample just makes everything a threat.
Yeah.
It's like I've been in situations like you where you were like, oh, I feel like there's not a lot that can go wrong here, I should be okay. And then like Dwarven Hammer, and I'm like, oh, that's not too bad. And I'm like, oh, it gives trample. Oh, nightmare. Yeah, I'm just dead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, having written this down as my second, I did that, and I was, like I said, red was the one I had most difficulty with, but I think that should be number 1 because number 1 basically I put Basat Ravager, but basically because
that's my number 2.
Because every instinct, basically you see that and you think Flame Tongue Kavu, and I was like, I can't possibly not put Flame Tongue Kavu in first place. But actually, this has been worse, a lot worse than I thought it'd be when I played it, because you often don't. You just have this one.
It turns out you just don't actually necessarily have enough of the same creature type.
Yeah, it rarely goes more than 2 for me, and sometimes it's even just 1. So you just top deck it, and it's like, well, ping something.
The fact that it goes to the face means that it's never horrendous.
Yeah, I won a game in the early days. My opponent could have burnt me out and just didn't, because obviously didn't realise it hit face. So they're just like, ping your creature concede. It's like, oh, you literally could have just killed me on board there. And then number 3, I put Doomscar Titan.
That's exactly what I've put.
Yeah, so it's this card it's sometimes really good and sometimes really bad, but it's it's just on the raw power level.
I don't know when it's really bad. The only way it's really bad is it's just a big dude, but I've just win so many games.
Yeah, maybe not sometimes really good, sometimes really bad, but I think when it's good, it's insane, and then sometimes when it's not, you feel a bit disappointed because it's just a 4/4 because I have to block with it.
Yeah,
but yeah, it is just it's a very solid card. I also had honorable mention Frenzied Raider. I've never played that kind of. I've never mentioned that it's worked to me.
I see that card go really late. Yeah. I've tabled that card a bunch of times.
That's what I mean. I feel like it's underappreciated because it seems like on power level really good, but it might be because you can kind of see both coming. You can't really catch people out with it. So whereas with Clarion Spirit, your opponent can't really do much about the fact that you're just playing 2 spells. You go Clarion Spirit and a second spell. Whereas with Frenzied Raider, your opponent can kind of see it coming. They have an opportunity between you playing this and them attacking with creatures, where you can just I'll just kill you both creatures and you've got 2/2.
Yeah,
So it's
it's interesting because I also looked at putting the red 2/1 boss that makes 2/1s.
yeah,
So I read that as well.
I think that's a bit like Usher of the Fallen, where it's like better against people who don't really know how to play around it. So people who's like instantly block it, it's like, well, fine, I've just got another 2/1 for free. Like you could just taken 2, and then I'd spend a turn making a relevant 2/1, and then like as soon as you make a 2/3, it's dead. But
yeah,
there's a lot of there are a lot of red cards that like could be there, but aren't quite as good as as they seem to be. Anyway, on to green. I think green has a, like you said about red, I think green has a very obvious one, and I've gone for Spirit of the Older Guard.
See, I've written 3 down, and I'm not sure what order they should be in.
Okay.
Hit
me with them then. Well, hit me with your actual order, the first one.
Boreal Outrider.
Yeah, so interestingly, this one, I just about put this in third.
Yeah, but this might be one that you're lower on because it's snow relevant again.
Yeah.
So obviously, without snow, it's just a 3/2. But if you do draft a bunch of snow lands, it's just like all your future creatures are just better.
Yeah. The only thing I don't like about it is it's a very frail body, and although the like Dice Doomblade defense is usually a way that you use to like mock bad arguments, like Baneslayer Dice Doomblade, so it's a bad card, but obviously it's a bomb. This because this set has a lot of removal, and this dies to even like basically every removal spell, including even like Frostbite. It's just very fragile for a set that has a ton of removal and relies on like card advantage and powerful creatures. So I wasn't. It's like just pipped into third, but even then I was reluctant to include it.
Spirit of the Older Guard was the one I've got second.
Yeah, okay, but like Spirit, I've never been disappointed with Spirit, even in a deck that's not like dedicated snow. It's like a 4-mana 3/4 that finds your land for free. So like I'm always happy to pick this card in a green deck, even if, like I said, it's not even a snow deck. Like it's got 3/4 snow lands.
See, I think you're. So you put Spirit. What did you put second?
So I put Blizzard Brawl, but by my own logic, I'm now thinking about it. I shouldn't really put it because that's like a snow dedicated one. But I have put Blizzard Brawl.
Yeah.
What have you gone
for?
I
think green. I think it feels more okay to put snow relevant cards in green because that's sort of one of green's things.
Yeah.
Like green feels like it's more snow based than thing. Which is, I sort I think green and blue are the more snow based ones, which is why I didn't mind putting snow relevant things there. But yeah, like I had Spirit of the Older Guard second.
Okay.
And then what did you put third then?
Well, in third, like I said, I put what you put first. But actually, I might change. Having said that, I might change. I'm actually going to, because I wanted to put Elven Bow, and I think I'm actually going to change my decision third to put Elven Bow.
Okay, see, my third one is Path to the World Tree.
Yeah, so this one again, it's like because I'm now going back to my original logic where I don't want to put too much snow focus stuff. Like this card.
Yeah.
I think it's better than people think it is, but I don't think that makes it great.
I think it's really good.
Do you think? Yeah. Even if it's 5 colours to activate, you think it's the third best common in the set? Uncommon in the set for green?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like, if you get it, like, you can just get the 5 colours without really trying that hard. There's just there's the uncommon Manolith, Snow Manolith, Replicating Ring. You've got Glittering Frost that lets you tap for any colour of mana, and then you can just pick because more often than not you won't be doing snow stuff with green anyway. You just end up taking the snow jewel lands.
Yeah.
That round. And so you'll take any of the green X snow jewel lands, and then you just take any of the whatever your other colour is that you're doing it with, and their jewel lands, and you just sort of end up getting the 5 colours, and it's really quite a powerful effect when you get.
It is, yeah. It's like mini Cruel Ultimatum almost. It does a bunch
of
stuff. Yeah,
it's like 2 damage to you, 2 damage to a creature. You gain 2 life. You draw 2 cards and make a 2/2. It's an effect that's worth going out of your way to make the 5 colours if you can.
Yeah.
Without too much.
It is.
As long as it's not
it is really
faff.
good. It is really good. It's good when I can get it, but I just think it's too specific. Like 5 colors too specific for me to include it in my top 3 green cards. But I do agree it's a really good card if you can make it power. But like Elven Bow, I think it's kind of just like good. And green really struggles with flyers. I've found in the set.
Yes.
Or just like basically, there's not many flyers in the set, so when your opponent has them, like you really need a way of dealing with them. Elven Bow is just a really good, cheap way of doing that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's surprising how much of a difference like the +1, +2 and reach can make.
Yeah. Should we move on
to at first I didn't think it was very good, but yeah. Yeah, do commons.
In white, I'm starting with Bounding Gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, not much to debate.
Turns out pacifism's alright in this set.
Yeah, I mean, even better because it works on, like, equipment.
It can't
crew.
Stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It enchants any permanent. It works on equipments as well, right? And it's actually it stops equipment's equipping. Yeah, it's just a really good card. It also like one downside, it doesn't kill things. So sometimes you want to put it on something like a bow roll outright and it doesn't work. But I think that's a very small downside for the fact that it just basically kills anything. Numbers 2 and 3, I was much more not sure on. Number 2, I think a very biased pick for me, but Iron Verdict. And
interesting.
So I'll tell you why I picked this. Basically, so I signed up to 17lands.com, like you kept telling me to, and I looked at because I wasn't sure on this. I looked at my most commonly drafted cards, and Iron Verdict is like twice as many as the next white common. So I was like, well, I kind of have to put that then. But I think that's because I like that kind of deck, like the sort of white control decks.
I've not actually looked at what I obviously tell people to sign up to 17 lands because it's great, and I've not used enough of the random information it gives you. So I've not looked at the what my most drafted commons and stuff are. I'll have to look at that. My number 2, I've just gone for Stalwart Valkyrie.
Yeah, that's my number 3. It's just like a solid flyer. That it happens to work really well in the black-white decks, obviously, because you can play it for 2 mana quite often. So 2 mana, 3/2 flyer that triggers stuff is Not to say that. What was for number 3 then?
Number 3 is an interesting one. It's Master Scald.
This was my number 4. This is a like close fourth. I wanted to include it, but couldn't.
Yeah. When you have them, the sagas are so powerful that the ability to rebuy them is just like, because they naturally just go to the graveyard, the ability to rebuy them just can just be backbreaking. Like it might be one of those where it's just like biased, but like I've won games and I've lost games where it's just like, oh, draw, and it turns out what I've drawn is a 4/4 that draws me an incredibly powerful spell out my bin.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, and like I said, I've lost games where I'm like, all right, I feel like I'm in a reasonable position, and then they're like, make a 4/4, get back my Binding of the Gods, or some other
the showdown of
foolish
the
saga.
What is it called? The Red White Saga.
Yeah.
Yeah. Playing that twice in one game, it's like you're not going to win after that, are you?
Yeah.
Cool. Number 2, I'm starting blue with I think actually my favourite common in the set, and this is Behold the Multiverse.
Yeah, Behold the Multiverse. Blue,
so
I thought had quite a lot of good commons. Like blue felt like I had quite a lot of good commons. I was like struggling to put them in order. Like Behold was easily first, but then like the rest I was a bit like, that's good. Yeah, that's good. It could be that.
I don't think we'll agree on this either, so it'd be interesting to see what you put. But yeah, Behold, like it's just so key to a lot of the blue decks. Like card advantage, I think is really key in this format because a lot of people are getting it like incidentally from other stuff, and when you just draw, like Scry 2 draw 2 for 2 mana instant speed, it's just really good.
Yeah.
Bergstrider I've put as my number 2.
See, I've gone for Augury Raven.
So that's my number 3. Is Bergstrider in your top 3?
No.
Interesting.
My third one is Mistwalker.
So that was my honorary thought. So this was another one where I was like, I really am I almost put this in over Augury Raven. But I just on Bergstrider quickly, I just think it's like so much better than people think it is, and it's such a powerful effect. It's basically like its removal in the kinds of decks that it fits into, like either the blue red giants decks or the sort of blue white red control decks.
Yeah. It's interesting because the blue mana doesn't have to be snow. It's just like as long as you've spent any snow.
I don't think I've ever cast this and not included snow. Like I've never had to stop and think, oh wait, is it actually going to tap something? Like I've always just got snow hands. But yeah, it's just like it does a lot in the set. So like it activates your Glimpse of Cosmos. It makes Smash cost 2. It locks down obviously a creature return, which is great, and it's a 4/4 body for 5. It's kind of like a Master Scald, but with incidental synergies for me. Like, it just does a lot of things that you want blue to be doing in this
Yeah.
set. So I think Berg
See,
Strike
but
is a
like,
lot better than people rate it.
yeah, but like I said, there was like a bunch of good blue cards because like I think Frostpeak Yeti's good.
I don't think that's very good. I think people play that too
No,
often.
it can just be a finisher for you.
Mm.
Um,
I find that often makes
because
it
like
cut in my decks.
you can just get to these games that like stall out, and then the Yeti like just gives you a bit of inevitability.
Yeah.
But I think that's why I like Augury Raven, because like Augury Raven's just like, I feel like it's just a better Frostpeak Yeti, because it's just like you don't have to pay 2 to make it unblockable, it just flies,
Yeah.
so it's unblockable.
It's also worth dwelling on how ridiculous it is, that how powerful this set is, that a 4-mana 3/3 flyer at common with a strict upside, like better than a 4-mana 3/3 flyer at common, is only my 3rd best common in the set. Like, what is happening? Like, in any
Yeah,
other
this set is really good.
like 4-mana 3/3 flyers used to be like a good uncommon, and now
Yeah.
it's just like a whatever common, with even if it has an extra ability.
Yeah, even though you can play it on turn 3 and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it like triggers stuff with Fortal, and costs 2 mana if you need it to. Cool, so moving on to black. Apologies if there were any breaks in the recording. I just killed my video and had to start again. But so number 1, black. I don't think there's too much to argue here. Feed the Serpent. It's just very solid removal. Yeah, it's
back to being instant. It spent a while being sorcery.
Yeah,
the old 4-mana black removal spell has been sorcery a couple of times recently.
Interesting. One thing I don't like is the flavour of this, where it's like the only common in the set, or the only real way of dealing with Coma, the Mythic Serpent, but the card is called Feed the Serpent. So it's like supposed to be helping. It's supposed to be feeding the serpent, but actually it's eating the serpent. It's like removing the thing it's feeding, unless it's like gets so hungry that it just leaves.
Eats itself.
Yeah, it eats itself.
Yeah.
Numbers 2 and 3, actually, I don't think there are that many black commons. I struggled on this. So the others I struggled because there was too much I wanted to include, but this is the other way around. I was like, none of these are that great, but I put Infernal Pet in number 2. Partly just because I really like the black-white double spell deck. I think that's why, because obviously this isn't great in other decks.
See, I think I obviously like the snow stuff. I like Priest of the Haunted Edge.
That card, I thought about it. I didn't want to include it because it's sometimes just... Obviously, sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's just dead. Like, if you're not a snow deck, it just doesn't do anything.
Like, I sort of put that because it can just sort of it just deals with creatures that aren't necessarily going to get into combat and stuff, and like I think it's the fact that it like deals with a lot of the little boast things. And like you don't need that many. It's not like you need a lot of snowlands to kill like the little boast creatures.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess it blocks them what it needs to as well. Yeah, it's a solid card, but yeah, like I didn't want to include it just because it's very specifically snow. But you're right, you don't need to be heavy snow for it to be still. But I think it just often makes the cut in my decks. Number 3, I put Skull Raid, but again, I wasn't.
See, I've gone for Jarl.
Yeah, I initially had Jarl in number 2. But then, the more I thought about it, the more it went down. But the Jarl is really good. I think maybe it should be in my top 3. But I think Skull Raid is like a card that I personally like to draft that kind of card more. But the Jarl, I don't know how you're supposed to say that.
I think Skull Raid is better than I give it credit. I don't think I've drafted Skull Raid enough. But again, that's probably why it's not made my top 3.
I think Jarl in the right kind of deck is like possibly definitely the second best black common, because if you have like a bunch of tokens or just like ways of all the black-white double spells deck where it's a 2-mana instant. Yeah. But I think it needs.
That might be why I like the. That might be why I like the things that like the Usher of the Fallen and the red guy that makes 2/1s. Because I like cards like Jarl that are just like, all right.
You don't mind attacking because you've got a Jarl.
Yeah. It's also good with things like the Elder Fang Disciple, like the Ravenous Rat. So like you discard and he's like, all right, and then just like, all right, he's just going to chump with his Ravenous Rat, and they're like, all right, but Jarl will finish it off, and obviously it's really good with the Ferocious Pup and what have you with First Strike.
Yeah,
because people will just
instant
attack
kill.
into that because it's only a 1-1, because obviously you can't boast on defense. And then you're just like, oh, first strike, get it killed.
Yeah. No, I agree that Jarl, like I said, I had it number 2 in my initial draft, like in my initial sort of draft 3. But I probably should have rated it higher. So I'm happy to admit that Jarl should be in my list.
Yeah.
On to Red then. I think Red
Obviously,
and Green,
it's
in fact,
Demon
it's
Bolt.
obviously Demon Bolt. Both of them are very easy. Demon Bolt is just would be uncommon in most sets and still be one of the best uncommons in the set.
Yeah.
It's just like ridiculous how strong this card is. That common.
What have you gone for number 2 then?
So my number 2 and 3 I'm gonna say at the same time. I've just gone for Squash and Frostbite after much thought. I thought I'd just put the removal spells. I think there's a lot of solid red commons actually. So I just took the easy way out of just putting all the burn spells in my top 3.
I've gone for Frostbite, but for number 3 I've gone for Run Amok.
Oh, interesting. So I lose to this card a lot, but I basically refuse to draft it because it's so against my principles of what I think is good in draft.
It turns out I think Run Amok is really good in this format. And I think it's really good with what Red wants to do.
Mm.
And
because it
looks like you're going to attack with like random boast things, and they're just like, all right, well, they just want the boast effect. I'll just put something in front of it, and then you're like, actually, no, I'm just going to smash your guy out the way instead.
Yeah, and there's also the fact that often with pump spells, it's like, well, I'm going to make this I'm going to block, even though it's going to be slightly, they're going to trade for 1 for 1, it's going to be slightly in favour of whatever, it's just a 1 for 1, but whereas with Run Amok, it's like, oh, and I'm also going to take 3 trample damage or whatever, which is often quite relevant in Red.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I think the trample is what makes it, obviously it's what makes it ridiculous compared to other, just random pump spells.
Yeah. I think Squash doesn't cost 2 often enough.
Yeah, I agree. Squash has gone down in my estimations, but I also think it's so key to certain decks that we'll get onto later.
Yeah.
That I couldn't not include it. Cool.
Yeah.
Into green, number 1 I've got Saryl's Packmate.
Yeah, obviously that's just like you see them foretell something on turn 2 with a forest, and you're like, all right, you're getting a 3/3, and you're drawing a card, and
this is another one that would be an uncommon and a really good uncommon in most sets, but randomly a common 4 mana 3/3 without foretell, draw a card. I'd be like, yes, I'm happily playing that in any deck.
Yeah,
but then it also randomly foretells. It's like the Augury Raven. It's in most sets this would be a good uncommon, but here we are making it a common and giving it foretell.
Yeah.
Number 2, I put Struggle for Skemfar. Just solid removal.
Interesting. I've put Ravenous Lindworm. Turns out that card has just been doing more and more.
Beefy worm.
Both for and against me. It's just it's just massive.
I think because I'm drafting the decks that have a bunch of squash in them, I'm not too worried by Ravenous Lindworm when my opponent plays it. So
yeah,
that's what I haven't included it in my top 3 at all. I agree it's better than it looks though. I do it will randomly just steal a game when you expect how am I going to win this? And you draw a Lindworm and it's like, oh, that's how I'm going to win because I've now got a 6/6. I've gained 4 life. My opponent can't attack anymore.
It does do that. So what's your number 3 then?
3 was one I thought about the most. I couldn't really differentiate between a lot of them, but I've gone for Sculptor of the Winter just because I like this kind of card.
I nearly put Sculptor. It's interesting because I imagine Sculptor of Winter is my most drafted common. I draft it all the time.
Yeah.
But my number 3 is actually Masked Vandal.
Yeah, this was one of mine. There were 3 or 4 that I could put in third place.
Because things like Dwarven Hammer and all the Sags and what have you, I think it just turns out that Masked Vandal just has such a powerful effect randomly.
Yeah.
And then it's a changeling, so it can randomly trigger things and make things cheaper and stuff like that.
One thing I will say is make sure you have a creature in the graveyard, because I've played Masked Vandal before trying to kill something and it just doesn't trigger. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't actually have anything to remove. Whoops.
Yeah, don't actually have anything dead yet.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree. It's better than it looks. It looks quite unassuming, but it is. Yeah, it's you rarely are upset with having it in your deck.
One of the things I am going to say quickly before we move on is, none of them were mentioned because they're not top uncommons, but I think the runes are just actually better than you think.
Yeah, I agree.
The fact that you can just put them on equipment actually makes a massive difference.
it's such a big difference in power as well. Like putting it on a creature, it's like okay, cool, it's a cantrip, so it's never terrible, but it gives us slight effect. Putting it on an equipment, it's just like it can just swing a game just by itself if you put like if the wing. I can't remember the name, but the one that gives it +1/+0 flying. If you stick just like the white lifelink on that, it's so hard to race against that when your opponent does that, or if you do.
Oh,
that.
Raven's Wings. Sorry, I
Raven's
get you.
Wings.
Yeah.
The white rune on Raven's Wings is like it's just so hard to race that when you put every creature opponent has is now Exalted Angel.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. The runes are,
Yeah.
but I hate to say that because
they're
I'm
not
the
like
kind of
top
person who
uncommons.
hates. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the kind of person who
They're not
hates
top
drafting that
uncommons.
kind of deck, but the runes are
Yeah.
a lot better than enchantments normally are. So we're moving on to
Yes.
archetypes now. We've done the colours. Should we start with white, black, double spells?
Yeah.
So we've gone top 5 here. I guess in rough order. I don't know if you've ordered yours best to last. Like I found it's harder to do
I
with
haven't.
5.
I sort of haven't ordered them. Like,
Yeah.
I think black white. There's a really obvious. Like, it's just Clarion Spirit.
And
Clarion Spirit's
Berserker
number one,
as well,
obviously.
like Bloodsky Berserker. Like those two are just the obvious uncommons you want in this deck every single time.
Yeah.
I
like,
found it
obviously,
really
you
hard...
want the.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, obviously, you want the gold signpost uncommon as well. Would be great. Ferger,
yeah,
is
Ferger,
it?
yeah.
Freeger?
So I had Ferger. They're the I had exactly the same as you. Those 2 drops definitely, and then Ferger has to be third.
Yeah.
The rest I struggled with because there's a bunch of commons that like are like easily make it good. One thing I will say is I think Doomscar Oracle is overrated. I think people play it too much because the gaining 2 because this deck must be quite aggressive most of the time, and gaining 2 life is like whatever. You're still spending 3 mana on it in total. It's better for triggering Clarion Spirits than it is to like be gaining 2 life. So I haven't actually included that. And for my last 2, I've put I've kind of put 2 cards that aren't that great in this deck, but are much better in this deck than other decks, if that makes sense. They're not necessarily the 2 best commons, but I put Wither Crown and Razor Draugr, just because they're like cheap ways of doing something active.
See, I've got Raise the Draugr. I put Village Rites.
I don't like that card as much as I thought I would.
It's just because you sort of end up with things like you often play things like Code Spell Cleric, and like if you've got a Clarion Spirit, you just end up with spirits. It's just a good it just feels like a good way to actually make sure you've got 2 spells.
Yeah, you've got a stream of cards. That's I mean that's why I like Razor Draugr because often your cards are similar.
Obviously you're like. Yeah, you're just like, I'll get 2 cards back, cast one of them now, that's 2 spells, and I've already got at least 1 spell for next turn.
Yeah, and I think it's good. It's good, particularly in this deck, because it's fine even if you're just returning 1 card. Even if it's just like return, my Clarion Spirit that you killed and play it, you're still triggering, the Bloodsky Berserker.
You're getting the 2 spells.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And with the Crown I put just because it's to feed the Serpent for 2 mana, basically, for all intents and purposes for this deck. You just care about your spells being cheap in this deck, so with the Crown's a lot better in this than it would be generally.
Would you not rather have way down then, or do you just not think you always have something to remove?
I don't think way down's very good. I think people overrate it.
I'll agree with that because there's a bunch of times where I've had it and it's just like, well, actually nothing's died yet.
Because I was looking at the 17 lands, like everyone's statistics. It tells you like the most drafted common essentially, and way down was like the 7th most drafted common in the set. And like, really? It's not that good. It's just because often you just can't cast it. Like it's great when you can cast it 1 mana -3 -3, sure, but you often just can't cast it. And it also makes things like Razor Draugr worse. It makes things like the common, what's it called? Steward, Stalwart Valkyrie. It makes that worse.
Yeah.
So it's just not that good, basically. So they're my top 5. We've got very similar top 5s there.
They're very, very similar.
Yeah. So next we can look at black red equipments. As it's sort of in rough order. Number 1 has to be Ruined Crown for me, just because it's such a key card for this deck. Even if you get like 1 rune in the deck, it's worth playing.
The fact that it searches it from anywhere.
Yeah. So even if it's from your hand, it's fine because it's like you don't have to pay that 2 mana. Just drops into play as a card. But if it's from your graveyard, like if you put a rune on a 2-drop, they kill it, and then you get it back with Ruined Crown. Like it's just such good value.
Yeah.
And the +1/+1 is relevant as well, because my opponent always equips stuff with Rune Crown Rune on it. I was like, I didn't think the Rune gave +1/+1. I was like, oh no, the Crown does that. Like, it's just added value.
Yeah.
So I've put this, and then I haven't put all the runes, so I've just put one of the runes. I put the red one just for the sake of including a rune, but the red one's obviously you're most commonly in red.
Yeah, I put runes and then haste. So the haste one.
That being the one you're most commonly having in red, but it's basically any runes are fine in this deck. Number 3, I put Cole the Forge Master. This guy can get really, really hard to play against. If you
it's interesting. Like I was looking, and like the red white saga is naff, but the red white guy is really good. Yeah, it's interesting. Like I don't think I've really seen all your tokens get bigger, be that relevant, and I was like, oh, hang on, no, it really has. When it's like when your Dwarven Hammer makes a 6/3, a 6/2 rather than a 5/1.
Yeah, but I think it's even better when you then put the Dwarven Hammer on another creature, and it's like they just can't block it because it's just going to come back. They're going to take trample. It's going to come back. Like, you just won the game at that point. If they don't kill your Col and you've got a Dwarven Hammer, like, you just can't lose that game essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had that, and then I had. It's like basically all the equipment in this deck are much of a muchness. I put Tormentor's Helm as my 4th card just for the sake of putting equipment. I think this is probably the best.
See, I put Dwarven Hammer because I'm like,
Dwarven
Hammer's just like the best one.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't include that just because it's like obviously very good. So I thought I'll go for like a generic common one that is bad in most decks but good in this one. So I put Tormentor's Helm. Better than it looks, I think.
The card I put like that is interestingly it was something that I got off like 17 lands. Is like Valor of the Worthy.
Which one's that?
And it turns out +1/+1, and when it leaves play, you get a 1/1.
Yeah, that card is annoying to play against. I don't draft it highly. I've actually put as my 5th pick the White Red Land, just because it's like it comes around really late in drafts because it's only like specifically good in this one deck, but it's so good in this deck to find like a Bounding Gold and your best equipment just off a land. It's like so good.
Yeah, the fact that you can get both, the fact that it's like
Yeah, I think people don't appreciate how like good this card is because I play against red-white equipment decks a lot, but they rarely have this land, and I see this land going around really late. So I think people don't realise how good this land is in that deck specifically. Yeah, if you give it all 5, I can't remember if you said all 5.
They're basically the same.
Okay,
like Rune Crown, some sort of rune, Call. I said you said Tormentor's Helm. I said Valor of the Worthy.
Yeah,
and then the land. Yeah.
Oh, have you got the land as well?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like it's. I think the lands are just really good. Like I was tempted to put Starheim in the black white deck, and like I just think all of those lands are just really good.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to blue-red giants then. So we sort of debated on this one because I didn't think it was really that much of an archetype, but you convinced me to put it in. Because to me, I guess the reason for that to me is there's a lot of like sort of bluey, reddy, whitey, control-y decks that happen to have giants in, but I wouldn't really call giant control decks. But we decided to separate the blue-red dedicated giants deck out from the sort of the more control-y versions of that deck. So I'll let you go first, seeing as you convinced me to to put this in.
Well, like obviously you just want like Agar. I think people get really confused by him and like how he works, because like I just draw loads of cards off him because people make horrendous blocks.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
There's loads of really nice synergies. I mentioned it in our Discord recently, but my opponent played a Toski when I had an Agar in play. Toski is the guy that when it has to attack every turn, it's 1/1 indestructible. And so every turn I'm just blocking it with my Agar and I'm drawing the card, not him. It's like it's like, do you not understand how these cards work? Like, you're forced to attack into my 4/3 with drawing 1. It's going to deal, even though it's indestructible, it still deals the excess damage. But I quite like what you can do is, so when your opponent attacks, you can like block with more creatures than you need to, and then you're dealing excess damage. So say they attack with like a 4/4 and you need to block it with Agar, what you can do is also chuck your like 1/3 in front of it, and then you draw a card because the Agar deals the extra 1. So like you said, I don't think people quite understand how good this card is and how the interactions with it work. And then also, what happens on other like shapeshifters and giants too. Yeah, this card's just really good, Agar. I've got that as my like the easy number 1 as well.
Yeah, and then Glimpse the Cosmos number 2.
Yeah,
and Squash, because they're the Squash obviously just great in this because it just costs 2 so often.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. So
and Squash for 2 is just like actually foolish.
Yeah.
Then I'm going for Mistwalker.
Okay, I had that as my 5th one, but much of a muchness to the actual order. And then I've got Frostfire Arcanist I had as well, just because it's really good in this deck and not very good in any other decks.
Yeah. I put the land, the Surtland Frostpire.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Because I find I quite like having just like a Crush the Week or 2 in this deck, so I don't necessarily need the land. Because Crush the Week comes around quite late because it's not very good in many other decks. Whereas this one is absolutely really good. Sometimes randomly really good with Agar as well if they got 1/1s. But yeah, I'd really like Frostbite Arcane, so I often lose to it as well. My opponent's just like turn 4, like turn 3 Agar, turn 4 Squash something, turn 5 get it back, like get another Squash. Like, I'm just not winning this game, am
I? Yeah.
So yeah, very very similar top 5s there.
Yeah.
Cool. Next, Black Green Elves. I think this is the deck that has like it's hardest to draft because sometimes you don't get the cards, but when you do get it off, it's like feels like constructed almost. But I mean, I've got Harald, and Harald unites the elves as the obvious like 1 and 2. Like you kind of need these to be drafting elves, otherwise why are you drafting elves? I'm assuming
isn't Harald unites the elves rare?
Is it rare? Oh, okay.
Yeah. I didn't put that because that's rare.
Oh, I was convinced. I see that all the time. I was convinced it was uncommon. Anyway, okay, well, forget that.
No.
I'll go for Harald then. Harold's my number 1.
I did put Harald.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put Harald. Yeah.
Sorry, I was convinced that Harald United Elves was uncommon.
No, the uncommon one is Binding of the Old Gods, which is great.
Yeah, I also have that on my list because even though it's not specifically an elf card, the third ability in particular, well, the first one obviously just removal is great, but third ability in particular is just really good with elves because you've got a bunch of like crappy small creatures that want to attack the card.
You've got like your Elderfang disciples and your token off your
Elderleaf Mentor.
That's it, Elderleaf Mentor.
Which I do have on my list. My list rounds out with I'll put Elderfang Disciple on just because I need to put an extra one because the rare wasn't there. But I had an Elderleaf Mentor. And I had Sculptor of the Winter as well because it's an elf. But it's just like you just need a bunch of commons that say elf on them. It's like basically no difference which ones they actually are.
I was going to say my final one was the Skem4 Shadow Sage. Because because you end up with a bunch of elves, you can the 2/5 and you can just like drain them.
Yeah.
Drain them out.
Because I often don't. Because I think it's on common, I don't see it often enough to know how good it is. But it seems like it should be good in that deck. But yeah.
Yeah, it's just like if you can use the Elderleaf Mentor or whatever it is, and then the uncommon Zombify. If it targets an elf, gives you 2 elf tokens.
Yeah.
So you can just end up with like a lot of like little naff tokens hanging about. So you can easily come down and like nog them for 5.
Yeah, because I think that black uncommon. Actually, I'm going to add that to my listings. I can't have Harald United the elf, so I'm going to chuck that on my list. But basically, like the elf that you don't really need to explain what's good in it. It's just like, does it have elf synergy? Yes, put it in the deck.
Yeah,
I don't think it's really this archetype doesn't really need explaining. Just like make a bunch of small guys and attack when you can. Essentially,
I'm going to say like you could also put Jarl on there because Jarl's really good in this because you've got like these little naff tokens floating around.
Yeah, it's like
you can just chunk block something and then yeah.
Cool. So moving on to snow. So we've gone for like green based snow. I think we're describing this as, but it's usually green, red, green, blue, or like Teema snow with the 4th and 5th splash essentially. But it's essentially like green based multicolour snow. So the sort of the big 3 uncommons, I think you won't really disagree with. So the Spirit of the Elder Guard, Path of the Weltry, and Svella Ice Shaper. I've got as like
Svella's so good.
Yeah, they're like the sort of cornerstones of the deck, aren't they?
I massively underrated Svella at first, and then I've played with it, and it's just absolute beat, and it's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's like the sort of the colour fix and card advantage engine of those three uncommons. They're just like all three are so important in this deck.
Yeah. Svella, Spirit of Aldegard. Yeah.
What
Path
have you
to the
got
World Tree.
as your other two cards? Assuming you've got those three.
Yeah, Sculpture of Winter.
Yeah, so
Like it's not like it's vital, but it's just like
it helps a lot because the deck's quite
really,
slow, isn't
yeah.
it?
It just, the deck's slow, and like you sort of want to play a lot of it. Essentially, I sort of put Sculpture of Winter, Glittering Frost as like a little combo. Because like that really helps you with things like Path of the World Tree or activating your Svella quite early and stuff.
Because I haven't included either of those just because I was like, well, they're kind of obvious picks. But I've actually gone for Ice Hide Troll because I think this card is like so good in the dedicated snow decks. It's just so hard to kill and it just punches through. Because I think these decks often just like bumble around doing a lot of nothing. Like, sure, you activated Path of the World Tree, but you still only got 2/2 bear. Whereas Ice Hide Troll, like, your opponent, like, they need a bounding gold or they're dead, basically. Like, it's just so hard to attack into and to block. So and my fifth card I've just put like Highland Forest, but any snowlands basically. Like this deck is the one where you really want to first pick these cards, isn't it?
See, like I put Avalanche Caller.
Okay.
Because like in a snow deck, Avalanche Caller is just really good.
Yeah.
But like it's one of those where there's so many. You just sort of like win the game with something, but Ice Hide Troll's just like I said, so good. It's so difficult to deal with.
Cool.
Actually, just do a lot of damage.
Yeah, I think
the thing to remember is attack before you activate it.
Yeah. Or if you're gonna try and kill it before they attack, because then it taps itself and they can't attack. So like make sure you play around the tapping ability properly. But I think Snow is probably the most fun deck to draft in this format if you can get it right, isn't it? Like if you can get it to pay off, it's just so powerful. There's a lot of payoff to it, and that's like the sort of the showpiece of this set in terms of the drafting. On to our last archetype then. We're whizzing through this video, which was the plan. See if people actually end up watching this one. So we've gone for this. So whereas I didn't really want to include Blue Red Giants, you didn't initially have this on your list of archetypes, but we've gone for. So I'm calling it Jeskai Control essentially. But any deck that essentially revolves around. So the two big, like, cornerstone cards are Vega the Watcher and Aegar the Freezing Flame. Where it's like either one of these, if you can get it into play, you basically winning the game. And then the other, I'm just gonna say all five automatic because the other three, the commons, like basically pick any Demon Bolt, any Iron Verdict, and any Behold the Multiverse you can see. That's like my experience.
Yeah, I've got those three.
Yeah, have you got? Yeah. Are your five exactly the same?
I put Gates of Istfell rather than Aegar.
Okay.
Because like I said, I'm just like massively high on the land.
Yeah. But you obviously do want the dual lands. Like it should go without saying that if you're 3-color control deck, pick any blue red white, red white, any dual lands. But yeah, it's like those three commons, because they're obviously common. You get a lot of them, and you can just get like the most insane common base. I think this is the deck I've had the most success with on drafting online. I think every trophy, every 7-win draft I've had in Arena has been with Jeskai Control, and like it's. The game's just like, you just feel like you're playing vintage sometimes if you have a Vega. So if you go like the first few turns for Tell something, and then you just go like Vega, double Iron Verdict your creatures, draw 2 cards. It's like, I'm just so much card advantage. And then similarly with Aegar, like Aegar is essentially just Vega because you've got Iron Verdict and Demon Bolt common. They basically do the same thing. They're going to kill something and draw a card. And like this deck is like so powerful if it works right, and it's so fun to play as well. It's like very much my kind of deck, but I really can't recommend it enough. I really can't recommend it enough. Like it's so fun to play and it's so powerful as well if you can get it right. But it's like a lot of the cards you need are essentially common. So like all the dual lands, like you said, all the removal spells are common. Basically the cards on the list. It's only really those two uncommons that you need.
Yeah, you want one of those two uncommons. Yeah.
Like the deck's fine just to be like purely commons and uncommons. Like it doesn't matter if you don't get bomb rares, because if your opponent has something, you just kill it, you counter it, play stuff like Saw It Coming, and Disdainful Stroke as well is fine in this deck. Just because like sometimes they just play like a random 7 mana giant that you can't kill, so you want a few cards like Disdainful Stroke or Bounding Gold. Just deal with it.
I was gonna say I've noticed more and more people playing that big red 7-drop.
Yeah.
Not uncommon, common, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Calamity Giant or something. What's it called? Cinderheart Giant.
Yeah.
It's like 7/6 trample that when he dies deals 7 to a creature.
It is really hard to deal with if you don't like. You obviously just can't block it, so you need the removal or the bounce spell. But it's you need a couple of ways of dealing with it in this deck.
I've seen more and more people playing that.
Yeah. That's us all done with our review.
Yeah.
It's a great format. We keep saying this.
I'm really enjoying this
keep saying
format,
it as well.
even though I'm not doing well at it.
It's a really I rarely have the games often have a lot of play. I rarely have a whole draft. Sometimes you have drafts where it's like I just didn't have fun that draft. Like my opponent's got really good decks. I got really unlucky. But this one, even when you get unlucky in some of the games, it's like no, the games where I played were just like really fun. Especially if you are drafting these. Like even I was gonna say if you're drafting the sort of snow or the control decks, but I think even like the equipment decks, there's a lot of synergies in this deck that reward you for drafting well. So even if you're drafting like the random aggressive equipment decks or the double spell decks, like it's just really fun to do the things that you're doing. So I think they've done really well. It's one of the best sets in the last few years. Like if
I would say I'm really enjoying it. Like I said, even when I was losing a lot, I was still enjoying the drafts and the games and what have you.
Yeah.
And I was saying to you before we started, like my win rate has gone up. Now I've got less cards in my sideboard.
Yeah, drafting. Yeah, lands, pick up lands, basically.
Drafting more lands.
Because I joked before we went into format, like apologies to people drafting around me because you're not going to see any lands, and I have continued that promise. Like I'll often end up pack 1 with like 5 lands already. It's like I'm having fun.
I was doing a draft last night, and then like. Pack 3, I'm like, I actually take some spells. I've only got 17 playable cards. Like, I have 11 lands, but
yeah. No, I'm looking forward to keep playing it. I imagine I'll keep enjoying it until the next set comes out, which does often happen. Often like a peter out a bit with the set, but this one I'm very much looking forward to just continuing playing it. So cool.
Should be good. Should be good.
Yeah. I think that's a good time to wrap up then. Yeah, like and subscribe to all that things that YouTubers usually say. I'm assuming if you've watched this, you also listen to our podcast, but if you don't listen to our podcast called Blue Envelope Podcast, tvpodcast.com, head over to there.
Join our podcast Discord.
Exactly, yeah. Join the Discord. I'll put the link to do that somewhere on the screen in the show notes, in the notes of this video.
Link in the description, down here.
That's what
things like that. That's what YouTubers do.
Like, subscribe, link in the description. And yeah, just let us know your thoughts. Let us know your thoughts either in a comment here or head over to our Discord and tell us there. And if you love this video so much that you want to send us some money, we also have Patreon, patreon.com/tppodcast. And Matt and Rob, our co-hosts on the podcast, joked that they were going to do a reaction video to this video, so hopefully that does happen. I don't imagine they will, because they're both busy people. And
no follow-through.
Yeah, they promise things they can't deliver, which is something I do all the time. But I doubt that will happen. If it does, I hope that does happen. Hopefully we can convince them with the fact that this video ended up not being 3.5 hours long, unlike the last few. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this more. If you have watched this and others, let us know which format you prefer. Because if everyone loves the other one, then I could be convinced to go back to the marathons. But
yeah,
I think that's us all done. So shall we sign off?
Yeah.
Join us for the next podcast. Cool. Thanks for watching / listening.
Yeah, we'll be doing a podcast a week on Monday. It'll be great.
Bye.
Bye.